There is a lake here that is not really a lake. It is a piece of the Mississippi River that got left behind. 77 acres of still green water, 15 feet deep at the most, lying in a bend the river abandoned. On the map it has a name, Lake Rebecca. On the ground it is something stranger and older than a name. It is a backwater, and a backwater is a river holding its breath. Come and see what that means. We are in Hastings, Minnesota, about 20 miles downstream from St. Paul at the eastern edge of Dakota County. 3 rivers converge within a few miles of this spot. The Mississippi comes down from the northwest. The St. Croix joins it just below town. The Vermillion drops over a limestone ledge in the middle of the city and threads out into the bottoms. Lake Rebecca lies inside that tangle of water, a quiet pocket on the floodplain, and today we walk its shore. The valley around us is far too big for the river now in it. That is not an illusion. When the last ice sheets melted, an enormous meltwater lake, glacial Lake Agassiz, ponded up across what is now northwestern Minnesota and Canada. Roughly 11 to 13,000 years ago, it broke out to the south and became a torrent geologists call Glacial River Warren. That torrent carved the valley we are standing in, and it joined the St. Croix right about here, at Hastings. So the flat ground under this trail is not ordinary ground. It is the floor of a drainage that once carried an inland sea to the Gulf of Mexico. When the great meltwater flood finally slackened, the modern Mississippi was left rattling around inside a channel built for something 100 times its size. Everything you see out here, the wide bottoms, the sloughs, the low wooded islands, is the river slowly filling in and rearranging a valley it did not make. A river on a flat floodplain does not run straight. It swings. The current cuts the outside of every bend and drops sand on the inside, so the bends grow wider and wider until 2 of them nearly touch. Then, in one flood, the river takes the short way across and leaves the old loop behind. Cut off at both ends, the loop becomes a crescent of standing water. Geologists call that an oxbow lake. The State Fisheries Office calls Lake Rebecca exactly that. So the water beside us is a former channel of the Mississippi. Look at its shape on a map and you can still read the bend. It is shallow, warm in summer, thick with vegetation, and it does not behave like an inland lake at all. When the Mississippi rises, this water rises with it. When the river floods, the river comes back into its old bed, and for a while Lake Rebecca stops pretending to be separate. Long before any of these names, this was and is Dakota homeland. Mni Sota Makoce, the land where the waters reflect the clouds. The Mdewakanton Dakota lived along this stretch of river, with major villages at Bedote, where the Minnesota meets the Mississippi, at Kaposa near present-day St. Paul, and at Mni Can, the place we now call Red Wing, just downstream from here. The Dakota are not a people of the past tense. They are here. In the Dakota language, the Mississippi is Haha Wakpa, the river of the falls, and it is also called Wakpa, the Great River. That naming tells you something. The river was not a boundary or a resource. It was the organizing fact of the world, and the backwaters like this one were the larder, full of fish, waterfowl, turtles, cattail, and the plants of the wet ground. A floodplain is not wasteland. It is a pantry. In the summer of 1851, the United States pressed 2 treaties on the Dakota. One was signed at Traverse des Sioux, the other at Mendota on the 5th of August. Between them, the Dakota gave up most of southern Minnesota, tens of millions of acres, in exchange for money and a narrow reservation on the Minnesota River. The payments were slow, short, and swallowed by traders. Within a generation, the land under our feet had legally changed hands, and the town of Hastings could be sold. It is worth saying plainly, there are 4 federally recognized Dakota nations in Minnesota today, and the nearest of them, the Prairie Island Indian Community, sits on this same river only a short way downstream. Their people fish this water, manage this floodplain, and argue in court and in council about what happens to it. The Dakota story of this river is not an introduction to somebody else's history. It is a continuing one, running alongside everything that follows. The American story here starts small. In 1820, a detachment of soldiers from Fort Snelling was stopped by ice on the way downriver and camped at a stand of trees on this bank to guard their supplies. The place became known as Oliver's Grove, after their lieutenant. For decades, that was all it was: a landing, a woodpile, a name on a boatman's chart, a convenient place to tie up where the current slowed and the bank was firm. The town proper came in the 1850s, and its name arrived by lottery. The founders each put a suggestion in a bucket, and the slip that came out said Hastings, the middle name of Henry Hastings Sibley, who would become Minnesota's first elected governor. The city incorporated in 1857. Some of its promoters genuinely believed they were founding a new Chicago at the meeting of 3 rivers. Then the financial panic of 1857 arrived and quietly shrank the dream. Still, for a while Hastings did very well, because in the middle of the 19th century the river was the road. Steamboats worked their way up from St. Louis, feeling for the channel, and Hastings had what a boat wanted: deep water at the bank and grain waiting on it. Wheat came in by wagon from the prairie behind the town and went out by hull. The town became a port, and the port became a mill town. The second river did the rest. The Vermillion, the largest stream in Dakota County, comes off the farmland to the southwest and drops abruptly over a rock ledge inside Hastings. That drop is free power, and in a 19th century town, free power is destiny. The upper Vermillion is still cold and clean enough that a stretch of it is a designated trout stream with wild, self-sustaining brown trout, which is a rare thing so close to a big city. A A mill was built at those falls in 1853, and there has been flour milling on that spot ever since. It passed through the hands of William Leduc, whose Gothic house still stands in town, and then to Stephen Gardner, whose name it carried for years. Gardner and his successors worked on the machinery that separates bran from the fine inner wheat, and the Hastings mill became known for a quality of flour that outsold the Minneapolis product. The claim repeated in Hastings is that a barrel of vermilion flour fetched $1 more than a barrel from Minneapolis. Treat the exact figure gently, but the direction is right. This was a serious mill in the years when Minnesota wheat was remaking the world's bread, and it never stopped. The same mill site is still grinding flour today under the Ardent Mill's name, which makes it one of the oldest continuously working industrial sites in the state. And then there was the bridge. In 1895, Hastings replaced its rope ferry with something no other town has ever had. To clear the steamboats below and still land traffic in the middle of 2nd Street, the engineers ended the bridge in a corkscrew. Cars and wagons came off the span and wound down a full circular ramp to the street. It cost about $39,000, took 7 months, and it was the only one ever built. By the middle of the 20th century, the spiral bridge was rusting and could carry only about 4 tons. A new high bridge opened in 1951, and that same year crews simply pushed the old spiral into the Mississippi. Hastings has never entirely forgiven itself. The lost bridge is now the unofficial emblem of the city, printed on its vehicles and rebuilt in miniature at a pioneer village nearby. A town can grieve a structure the way it grieves a person. Meanwhile, something far larger was happening to the river itself. In 1930, Congress authorized a 9-foot navigation channel on the upper Mississippi to be created not by dredging alone, but by damming. The river would be broken into a staircase of pools, each one held at a fixed height by a dam at its lower end. It was one of the great engineering decisions of the century, and it changed this water more profoundly than any mill or bridge. From the north end of this park, you are less than a mile from Lock and Dam Number 2. Construction began in 1927, and the lock opened on the 30th of November, 1930. Its gates hold back the pool that runs all the way up to St. Paul. The city of Hastings owns a small hydroelectric station there, and in 2009, that site hosted the first commercially licensed hydrokinetic turbine in the country, a machine that harvests the current itself. But here is the thing that surprised us, and it is worth getting right. A dam does not raise the water below it. It raises the water above it. Lock and Dam Number 2 lifts the river upstream in what the Corps of Engineers calls Pool 2. Lake Rebecca lies on the downstream side of that dam. So whatever raised this backwater, it was not the dam we can hear from the trail. The water beside us belongs to Pool 3, and Pool 3 is held by Lock and Dam Number 3, roughly 15 miles downstream near Red Wing, placed in operation in July of 1938. That is the structure that sets the level in these bottoms. Everything green and drowned and quiet out here is standing at a height that a concrete sill 15 miles away decides. The old loop of river is now, in effect, the upper end of a reservoir. The dams did what they were built to do, and then some things nobody chose. Water levels that used to swing wildly now stay high and steady. Islands have worn down under wind and wave. Sediment settles into the still backwaters instead of being flushed away, so year by year the quiet places get shallower and warmer. Aquatic plants that need a dry summer margin struggle. A backwater held permanently full slowly becomes a backwater filling in. Which is why this particular lake is quietly managed by hand. The city of Hastings keeps a set of removable timbers, stop logs at the outlet. When the Mississippi comes up, crews add boards and let the lake come up with it. When the river drops, they pull boards and let it fall. It is a small, old-fashioned, entirely human piece of plumbing, and it is the reason this water still behaves a little like a river and not a pond. Now look up. The trees around this trail are not an ordinary Minnesota woodland. This is floodplain forest, and it is dominated by two species that most trees cannot compete with, silver maple and eastern cottonwood. Both are built for a landscape that goes underwater every spring. Their roots tolerate weeks of drowning. Their seeds ripen early, ride the flood, and germinate on wet, bare mud. Flooding is not a disaster to them. Flooding is the appointment they keep. That is the key to reading everything out here. Ecologists talk about the flood pulse. On a healthy floodplain, the river swells in spring, spills sideways into the woods and the backwaters, delivers sediment and nutrients and fish, then withdraws and leaves damp ground exposed for the summer. Every plant and animal here is keyed to that rhythm. The high water is not an interruption of the system. The high water is the system, and the dry margin afterward matters just as much. Which is why researchers are worried. Across the upper Mississippi, much of the floodplain forest is a single aging generation of silver maple, 50 to 70 years old and older, with almost nothing growing up underneath. Where a big tree falls, sunlight hits the ground and reed canary grass takes it, a dense invasive sod that seedlings cannot break through. Add water levels that never fully draw down, and young trees drown. The forest is not regenerating on its own. So the giants around us are worth a long look. A cottonwood on good bottomland can put on height faster than almost any tree in North America and reach well over 100 feet. In early summer, the female trees release the seed fluff that gives them their name, drifting over the water like a slow snow. Every one of these trunks started as a seed that landed on wet mud in a year when the river fell at exactly the right moment. And there is the other reason this modest green lake matters. It sits inside the Mississippi Flyway, the great north to south migration corridor that follows this river system from the Canadian breeding grounds to the Gulf. Roughly 40% of North America's waterfowl and shorebirds are estimated to use it, and more than 300 species travel it in a year. To a bird, the river is not scenery. It is a route, and a route needs rest stops. This is one of those rest stops. Bald eagles work this stretch year-round. American white pelicans, birds with a 9-foot wingspan, drift through in flocks. Peregrine falcons hunt the bluffs. Sandhill cranes pass over with that rattling call that sounds older than it has any right to sound. Great blue herons stand in the shallows like they are being paid by the hour. In spring and fall, the warblers pour through the canopy above this trail. Around the lake, the park holds a large emergent marsh, the shallow zone where cattail and bulrush stand with their feet in water. Marsh like this is the most productive habitat in the whole system. It is nursery, cover, and cafeteria at once. It is also fragile because it needs the water to move up and down. Hold the level too flat for too long and the marsh either drowns or dries, and what replaces it is far poorer. The fishery here tells you the same story from underwater. Yes, there are the lake fish you would expect: bluegill, crappie, largemouth bass, northern pike. But the surveys also pull up sauger, white bass, freshwater drum, channel catfish, species that belong to a big river, not to a small lake. They are here because the Mississippi came in over the bank in some past flood and left them behind. The lake keeps a memory of every high water. And this park was not always a park. Part of the ground beside the lake was an oil storage tank farm, an industrial yard of steel and gravel on the riverbank. The tanks came out, the land was donated to the city, and beginning in the early 2000s, crews killed the weeds, seeded wet prairie and wet meadow, and rebuilt the shoreline. Blue vervain, bee balm, sawtooth sunflower. A tank farm is now a field of flowers. And in winter, this whole place converts. The lake locks up, and because it is shallow and full of decaying plants, the oxygen under the ice can run out, so the city runs an aerator to keep the fish alive until spring. People walk out and drill holes and sit over the same water we are looking at now. Then the ice goes, the river rises, and the forest floods, and the whole appointment is kept again. Walking out, what stays with us is how much decision is buried in a place that looks accidental. The valley was cut by a flood out of an ice age. The lake was cut off by a river changing its mind. The water level is set by concrete 15 miles downstream. The prairie was seeded by hand where oil tanks stood. Almost nothing here is untouched, and almost nothing here is fake either. It is a working landscape, still alive. A backwater is the part of a river that gets left out of the story. No barges, no headlines, just slow green water full of herons and drowned trees. But this is where the fish spawn and the migration rests and the cottonwood seeds land. The main channel is only the river's traffic. The backwater is where the river actually lives. Thank you for watching. Follow for more trails of the world.